Recently, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, and I wasn't there to do any podcasting. I was just there for a little bit of a short break just to kind of recuperate myself before I have to come back to Kampala. But I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Brother Kevin Simpson. He was here on the podcast, and he invited me to a networking event through Nairobi Nexus. And from there, I met several people, and I ended up doing some podcasts before I left coming back to Kampala. And one of the people that I met was named Tadre, and she was talking about basically how you can move and repatriate to Kenya. And I posted that podcast here on this channel. Now, the YouTube comments were all amazing and supportive, but then we posted this clip on TikTok. What are the areas that African Americans are moving to, or people from the diaspora are moving to, and why?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that because when I do my consultation, I have a list of neighborhoods in Nairobi that I recommend for expats. And then I also have a list of towns on the coast of Kenya that I recommend. Yeah. So Kilimani, Kileleshwa, those are middle class areas. So it's a lot of high-rise buildings now.
Right.
Which if you like that, you like that. I'm not somebody who does.
Okay.
And then they also have like older maisonettes and apartments from the 70s.
Okay.
So I prefer an older build with the hardwood and all of that.
Okay.
Right? But then you also have upper class areas as well.
Okay.
Lavington, which is next door to Kileleshwa.
Yes.
You've got Kitasuru, especially if you have a family and you want space.
Okay.
I would recommend a Kitasuru. There's so many different neighborhoods.
Okay.
Lavington has homes and properties, but they also have like villas.
In the clip on TikTok, if you read the screen, it says suitable settlement areas in Kenya for Black Americans. Now, the comments on YouTube and the comments on the clip on TikTok are completely different. And it showed me that there is somewhat of a problem with Black Americans possibly moving back to Nairobi. And I want to go through these comments with you because they do tell a larger story that some of us as expats may or not be looking at. So the comments, guys, were very telling on this video. I want to start off with the lady Shiny Sunny. No, they're gonna Cape Town us. So, I actually was going on and I was commenting from the PDS's page, and I said, hey, we're coming to move in with you. All right. King Zach says it's already in motion, unfortunately. Now, the lady Shiny Sunny says, only if you come to protest, hashtag Rudo must go with us. Now, here's what I have noticed, right, from foreigners that are in Kenya. There is somewhat of a lot of pressure. Like, if you are a foreigner and somehow you're benefiting in any way from the Kenyan economy, and when those protests are going on, I feel like it's mandatory that you must make some level of a post, an Instagram story or something, letting other people know that you are down with hashtag Rudo must go. You must stand with Kenya. I've seen almost every foreigner, where it's African American, whether it's Ugandan. It's like, look, you could be here, but you better be on team hashtag Rudo must go. If something happens to civilians, I see a lot of foreigners, Black foreigners, reposting the fallen people that have passed away. And like, you need to show that level of concern to be there. Kenyans are the only people I've seen that foreigners feel like compelled, like you need to be out here with us or else, right? That's one thing I've noticed, especially if you're doing business there, you're benefiting from them. They expect that from you. And I do like that. I'm not gonna lie. I do love that about them. Victor goes, I hope they won't isolate from the rest of Kenya. I hope they become part of the Kenyan culture and people. So this is a positive comment. So basically, one of the fears is that, hey, foreigners will come in and they will basically isolate themselves. I guess this might be somebody like the Chinese or Indians. I'm not sure, but that's one thing that African Americans will not do for sure. They definitely gonna integrate and come talk to you. Yeah, no, this makes it expensive for us. Now, this is a growing concern. Okay, I live in Uganda, but I just came back from Kenya, and it's very, very similar. And that is one thing that Ghanaians were complaining about, that now, because of the Black Americans coming in with dollars, inviting other Black Americans with dollars, this makes the cost of living go up for locals who earn in a different currency. Now, Joe says, you will come and sell Kenya just for money. Now, this sounds for us as Black Americans as a comment that may be silly, but if you can look at like what's going on in certain neighborhoods, like I was having to, be past Kilimani, right? And I saw so many Chinese businesses. I saw so many businesses that were foreign owned in Kenya. I'm gonna be honest. I can see why a Kenyan can say something like this. Now, if I didn't visit there recently or have been there, I would think, well, why would somebody say that? But after being there, I can see exactly why somebody would have that suspicion. This person goes, Kenyans, let's not forget and underestimate ourselves. We are Kenyans, and Kenyans is our business. Even as others keep coming, gentrifying and whatnot, we must keep evolving, progressing, and demanding better. Trust me, we shall not be left behind ever again. Kenya Nihon, right? All right, I like that comment there. This should be a private conversation and not a public announcement for all to come. So this may be an African American. I understand what he's saying. Like, listen, you guys are talking about openly coming to Kenya, repatriating to Kenya, making this your home, but then not understanding that this is already someone else's home, and that group of people is trying to make it themselves. All right. This disgusting person says, this is giving gentrification vibe. Anyway, they should be warned that Kenya is closed for renovation and we have an election purge coming up ahead. All right. Again, I can see why somebody would feel that way too. Hope y'all all know this is a slippery slope. The day that Kenyan gets an overwhelming amount of foreigners who are there to live, it will become impossible for a common Kenyan to afford to live in those areas. They earn in a different currency, so they can afford to pay more than they need to. Okay, this could definitely be true. They call themselves expats because they come with dollars, but the truth is not all of them have money anymore. Even those who do have it, it runs out quickly unless they are employed. They say expats, say immigrants. Foreigners coming here are expats. We going there are immigrants. Person says, we need to do something to discourage this gentrification. All right, this is what I kept also seeing on that post. Oh, this is sick, stay away. Another individual says, please, we're already full, no more people moving here. Don't come to Nairobi, please. Poster says, please don't come, please. So when I moved to Uganda, in Kampala, I was not thinking about the locals. It wasn't my duty to think about them. I was thinking about coming back to the continent for my own reasons, which was, living here, having a life here, obviously understanding culture, understanding Africa, at least from the vantage point of living in Uganda. But hey, when I'm looking for housing or I'm looking to spend money, I never thought about how it affected somebody else. Okay. Now I live in Kampala where this isn't a big issue. You don't have, so many foreigners living here. They are here, but it's not like a whole bunch like Nairobi, right? But when I saw the comments from these Kenyans, and obviously not most Kenyans even care about this or thinking about this, but I do see some valid concern from the Kenyan community that live there. And this, in my honest opinion, is not a shot at Black Americans, okay? They are concerned because here is another group of individuals who see how great their city is. They see the fine dining there. You see all of the neighborhoods building up. The cost is affordable. And these foreigners can come in and they can live here, right? What foreigners don't look at is the rising costs that are going to happen for the locals that live there. For an example, I was happened to be in Kilimani at Carrefour one day. I even met some of y'all there. I noticed at this particular Kilimani that it was a whole bunch of empty apartments that were being built or being sold either by Chinese or Kenyan contractors. All right. And what I noticed is that these apartments were priced so heavily that I felt that it could be 3 people, right? upper middle class Kenyans that could afford it, Kenyans in the diaspora, are foreigners. And what I saw coming out of those apartments typically, if it wasn't Kenyans, it was foreigners. Now, a lot of these apartments were empty, not being sold. And if those apartments are going to be sold, we know who those apartments are going to be for. These are for people that have money that can spend it. What I saw in the comment section were Kenyans who were concerned that their cost of living and their high prices are going to go up. Now, remember, they have been protesting this particular finance bill from Ruto, which they want him out of office, and people have been protesting, people have been passing away and dying. And while I don't believe that this is a direct shot at Black Americans, I will say that Kenyans understand that the country is more set up for foreigners to win than it is for them. This is very similar to Uganda, and I don't want to sit here and be fake and lie about it. It's true, right? A lot of these countries are set up right now for foreigners to be way more successful than somebody who's from there. Now, America is set up a little bit different. America is set up for, if you have citizenship, is great. But if you work your way really hard and you're smart and you're intelligent, if your will and determination is there, you can make it in the United States and become something. You can have that rags to riches story. That's a lot more difficult to do in Uganda or Kenya. And I feel like a lot of people feel like their ability for them to be able to own a house or to own an apartment, the more foreigners you get, whether it's African Americans, whether it's Europeans, that dies soon. And so the future business owners of the country are going to be foreigners. I see it here in Uganda. I've seen so many businesses leave the market, especially in the local market, like the Chinese, for an example. The Chinese, I talked to a lady who sells laptops, computer parts, monitors, mouses, keyboards, all the rest, right? Very, very beautiful lady. And I was asking her, how is the business going? She said, well, the business is not going so well. I actually want to go and get regular work. I said, why do you want to get regular work? She says, well, because the Chinese are now allowed to trade and no tax. So they can bring in all of their products imported with no taxes because they are investors in the country. But for my products, I'm going to be still paying tax at URA or wherever else. And when the Chinese have their goods coming in no tax, they can sell it lower, and simply I just can't compete on price. So therefore I'll be out of the business. And I'm pretty sure this is very similar as what's happening in Kenya. Kenyans won't be able to compete against the Chinese, or Kenyans feel like they may have a hard time competing against even Kenyan Americans or Black Americans. And these are things that are concerning for this particular group of people, just like it is here in Uganda, right? Ugandans are going to have a hard time competing with somebody like myself, who's an American and can earn in dollars or do something different, right? I can see the concern. Here is what Kenyans should understand, or maybe will understand, is that the amount of Black Americans that will or will not come over probably won't change a lot of things as much, right? Because Nairobi is so great, everybody knows about it for a long time, and so people are coming there from all the parts of the world. But I understand the frustration of when you feel like your country is not set up for you to win. I see it all through East Africa, right? Kenya is probably the best one in East Africa, but I understand that. And I think us as Black Americans, we should be aware that, hey, on TikTok, where you have maybe a little bit more of a local crowd, this is how they feel. The people on YouTube that might be a little bit more affluent from the diaspora, have some money, they're not threatened by it. But there are Kenyans who are threatened by it. And we should be mindful of that and take them into consideration as much too. Because again, I understand that Kenyans, when they see these new apartments coming up, they see these high prices of rent every month. You see a place for 200,000 Kenyan shillings in a month, 300,000 shillings in a month in Lavington. They know who those apartments are for. They know who their bosses will be. If a person can stay there in Kenya, and we got to understand that sometimes you're bringing something different to the business. Let's say, for example, what I do here with social media content creation. Well, this is not taking a job away from somebody, right? But maybe you will be. Maybe somebody else will be. So if that business is successful, is that then taking an opportunity away from a Kenyan or from a Ugandan? It could, And I just want to say, for the Kenyans that commented on that post, I see it here in Uganda. I see it when I travel through Africa. I understand your frustration. I can say for the Black Americans that I know is that the intention is to not come over and to step on anybody's toes or to, try to make anybody feel bad. I know the Black Americans that are there in Nairobi are working with Kenyans, trying to learn, trying to understand what's going on. But hey, we do understand. I can say why you feel the way you feel. And again, I would feel the same damn way if I were you. I'm an American, and when I hear we have people coming over to America and I feel like that may limit my opportunities, I would feel the same way. All right, I'll feel the same way. So subscribe, hit the bell. We out.